So sorry that the screen is a little bit smaller, but I wanted to make sure I fit everything into the screen here. So what I have here is just, these are the questions we have to ask ourselves as we are trying to decide if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square in the coordinate plane. The keys here is you're going to have to find the slope of four sides, all four sides of the quadrilateral, and both diagonals every single time. That's 6 different slopes. So you need to use the slope formula. I will always be writing it in my notes as change in y over change in x. 6 times. You have to use that 6 times. And as you're doing that, you're asking yourself this series of questions. You always start with making sure your opposite sides are parallel. So whatever your shape looks like, you're making sure that this is true. Those slopes are the same, and that those slopes are the same. Is that true? The answer is going to be yes, unless you've done something wrong or I've done something wrong. The goal of this class is to always make that answer yes. And then it comes down to this. The second question. Are your consecutive sides perpendicular or not? So what does that look like? If they're perpendicular, that means all 4 of these are right angles. That means your slopes here are opposite reciprocals. If this is A over B, this is the opposite of B over A. And then these are the same, and these two are the same. If they are not perpendicular, what does that look like? Well, it means these are not right angles. So that means if this is A over B, this is anything but B over, or negative B over A. It might be B over A. It might be some other number, 6 over 3, 7 over 1, or X over A. It's just different slopes that are not opposite reciprocals. That's what a no looks like. Now, if you get a yes, you have to ask if the diagonals are perpendicular. If you get a no, you have to ask if the diagonals are perpendicular. So no matter what, you are checking for perpendicular diagonals. You're checking your opposite sides, you're checking your consecutive sides, and you're checking your perpendicular diagonals. Again, if your diagonals are not perpendicular, that means this line and this line do not form a right angle. If they are perpendicular, that means this line and this line form a right angle. Opposite reciprocal slopes, not opposite reciprocal slopes. If they're opposite sides parallel, consecutive sides perpendicular, and diagonals not, that's just a parallelogram. Yes, no, yes is a rhombus. Okay. If it's yes, and then now you do have perpendicular sides, then again it's your diagonals. It's a rectangle if these diagonals are not perpendicular. It's a square if they are. That's a perpendicular line, or those are perpendicular lines, and those are perpendicular sides. Perpendicular sides, not a perpendicular line, or not perpendicular diagonals. Only perpendicular diagonals, no perpendicular things at all. That's a parallelogram. With that said, I have an example here that I want you guys to try. Decide whether this quadrilateral is a parallelogram. You have points A, B, C, and D. I will get you started. Draw a quadrilateral. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters that you have A, B, C, and D clockwise wherever you start. Find your 6 slopes and make your determination. Go ahead, press pause, and try that. So to start, you find the slope of the 4 sides. We should get that line AB is a slope of 3, line DC is a slope of 3, AD is negative 1/3, BC is negative 1/3. So the first question was, are opposite sides parallel? Yes. Are consecutive sides perpendicular? Well, here's our opposite sides. They're the same. That's a yes. Consecutive sides. Positive 3 over 1, negative 1 over 3. That's perpendicular. And in fact, all of these are perpendicular. So at this point, we've said yes, and yes, we're down here. We have to decide if it's a rectangle or a square, and that comes from the diagonals being perpendicular or not. Pause and make sure you check that now, please. What we see, hopefully, is that our segment AC is a slope of negative 3 over negative 11, or positive 3 over 11. And that segment BD has a slope of negative 9 over 7. Those are not opposite reciprocals. They're opposite, but they're not reciprocals. Therefore, this is not perpendicular, not a 90-degree angle. So what can we conclude? Our opposite sides are parallel, the consecutive sides are perpendicular, but the diagonals are not. That shape is a rectangle. And that's the conclusion we can make, and we've shown our mathematical evidence that we need. It says to explain in a complete sentence why. Show your work to support your answer. Here's our work. Really, the main focus here is I want to be able to see the work to support your answer and see your answer that this is a rectangle. If you can do that for me, I will be a very happy teacher.